Right, well, thank you, everyone. Hope you're having a good day so far. And welcome to our panel, or we're joining you for our panel on broadcasters and the fight for audiences and advertisers and what's really working. So what is the reality that we're talking about here? So I've got a really good panel here with Daniel from RTL. We have Hayley from NBCU, and then we've got Steph from the ad tech side from Publica. So we should hopefully have a nice rounded point of view and lots of healthy disagreement, hopefully. So yeah, look, just to go straight into it, Hayley, what do you think are the real key growth areas currently for advertisers today?
You know, when you look at the ecosystem overall, there's been so much change, and that change has been driven by consumers and technology. We are already in this multi-screen future. And if you look at video consumption, so total video, 50% is already via streaming, and that's forecast to get to 70% in the next 5 years. And within streaming, the majority of viewership is already ad-supported. So we've been bringing our consumers and bringing our advertisers and our partners in from day one when we made that pivot to streaming with Peacock. And in 2022, Peacock was the fastest growing streamer. But 90% of our audience is ad-supported. So streaming is the future of the ad-supported ecosystem. Now, the guiding principle behind that is that linear plus streaming together is a growth business. Because when we put those two categories together last year, we saw revenue growth, which is incredible. It just comes down to how you manage that pivot from one to the other. Now, obviously, broadcast is a highly profitable business, and we've been seeing that migration to streaming. But it's just how you manage that transition. Now, that's why we created one platform, which is TV Modernized, is where we put in linear and digital on the same playing field, because consumers don't delineate between one or the other, and they shape the future of entertainment. They get to choose how, when, and where they want to consume content. So we created one platform, which is a video platform, and it connects marketers to over 300 different digital endpoints and linear. So it's all of our content, but paired together with the benefits and the technological capabilities of the platforms. So you've got this TV viewing experience that's personalized just like your social feed, which is really, really exciting. So yeah, I mean, it's powered by 4 key pillars. It's like the single decisioning engine. And those 4 pillars are data and identity. In a world where third-party identifiers are fading fast, first-party data is the future and identity is the new currency. Activation and automation. Ease of execution is everything. So whether a marketer wants to activate direct IO or programmatic, you need to be flexible. We've just enabled programmatic capabilities across live sports. So that's 30 live sports a month. Whether it's the World Cup, the Big Ten, the Premier League, we actually saw 100 advertisers submit about 7 million bid requests during the World Cup final. We've also just launched our Peacock Ad Manager. So that's a self-serve platform. So that means that marketers of any size can now go and activate against these premium broadcast quality content. And then ad innovation. So creating the best possible ad experience, thinking low ad loads, interactivity, shoppability. And finally, but by no means least, is measurement. I mean, we don't live in a world anymore where you had one screen, one audience, one environment, the sofa, one ad creative, the 30-second spots, and one measurement company. We've entered this new world where consumers are everywhere and they consume content across different devices and platforms. And measurement has fallen behind the consumer. So in 2021, we challenged the whole industry to break legacy and come on this journey with us to build towards a solution or solutions that are ultimately going to measure or reflect how people consume media. And since, we've certified a number of different partners across all of the different measurement categories, so attribution and verification, for example, but you can transact that way right now with us in the US across those different currencies. And for the upfront, we conducted more than 40% outside of your standard age and gender demographics. And the benefits are immense. It's deduplicated reach, it's more verified impressions, it's less wastage, it's frequency optimized, and all of that good stuff. But ultimately, final point is that the future of advertising is at the intersection of content, technology, and partnerships.
Cool. And can I confirm you're talking predominantly from a US point of view there at the moment?
I'm talking from a US point of view, but our ambitions are global. I mean, a lot of my role is how we increase our footprint around the globe. Focus primarily on video. Okay, and to get a view more that will cover EMEA, so Daniel, are you seeing the similar sort of things that are happening here? I mean, my view is that the US does tend to be a few years ahead when it comes to things such as connected TV and things like that. How are you seeing the market and the opportunities for RTL?
Yeah, so first of all, everything she said, right? I feel highly unprepared when I listen to you. But what I would argue is that the prime real estate of video advertising is the big screen, and everybody wants to be on it. Every advertiser is looking a way into connecting to consumers through that big screen. Now, the good side today is that the opportunities are vastly bigger, right? I can do linear, I can do nonlinear. In nonlinear, I can do this, that, fast, AVOD, all the nice acronyms that we have, right? So what we are seeing is that the demand for being on that big screen in video and connecting to consumers in the most impactful way is something that everybody's looking for. The problem is, if you drill down a little bit, CTV is what strawberries are to yogurt. Everybody wants the real stuff in it, right? But there's not enough strawberries / CTV in the world to fill all the yogurts, all the media plans that you're trying to fill with that inventory. So what we are seeing and what we are fostering is a lot more investment into content. And I think we had the content topic today in the intro a lot, which is at the end of the day, the nucleus and the originator in all of the connections that we're trying to establish with consumers, right? Because let's face it, what do they want to see on the big screen, right? Yes, they like some advertisements, right? But it is the content that makes the difference. And that's, I think, something that we're trying to pursue in addition to simplifying the experience for advertisers to tap into the different possibilities from linear, non-linear, all the way in connecting to those consumers. So I think the trend or the market is really like, how do we grow the strawberry fields of that prime real estate on the big screen, and how do we simplify the access to it and make it more easy for advertisers to measure, to compare. And there are some interesting innovations going around. Maybe just want to mention our partner Atresmedia is launching on the 1st of April that they're going to change their trading of TV completely to a CPM-based business, right? Which makes it more easy and more comparable for buyers to see, okay, what am I getting, what is the cost for linear versus non-linear. So there are many innovations going into that direction, but for sure the US, I mean, it's already a $27 billion market for CTV in the US, if I remember correctly. We're trying.
We're getting there. We're catching up.
Yeah, well, we'll do our best to grow strawberries.
Well, it's great. So you've got the content. There's a huge investment in content. Yes. There's a lot of innovation in technology and data. If I can throw to you, Steph, we want to grow the pot. We want to grow the pie. We want more inventory out there. There's interesting stuff about the likes of the S4 players doing, moving into this market. But ultimately, surely it's about consumer experience, people actually wanting to be in your platform and consume that content and not making it hard. Do you think do you think we're just at the start of trying to make that consumer experience better, or is there a lot more to go? I mean, as an ad server, I guess you've got quite a lot of views here.
Yeah, I guess so. I think you're right. Yesterday, we heard a lot of people talking about the experience, and I don't think it's necessarily wonderful at the moment. I think we need to get those strawberries, and we need to get that those lovely brands into CTV and leaning in, absolutely. But we need to make sure that you've got your tech sorted out, and this isn't a plug well, I mean, obviously Publica is excellent at it, but you've got to make sure that you've got parity, I think, between that linear experience and the CTV experience and that streaming, so that people don't know the difference. You know, if my friends or my mum or something's watching the ad breaks, I don't want them to know the difference at all. And we're only going to get all that money flowing through in those programmatic pipes if we make sure that we do have that parity. And I think it's about making sure that people lean into it, lean into the tech, but also that the tech's there and is going to provide those rules and that safety net for you as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a famous cartoon that's circulated by your colleague quite a lot as well. The picture of a couple on the sofa saying, things no one said ever, darling, shall we watch some CTV tonight? No one ever says that. Consumer just sees the TV content. And, you know, one thing that I've noticed in the UK across some platforms is that we're seeing, I think, a not very good consumer experience. You know, we've got a lot of frequency. You've seen the same ads in the same breaks. The quality control of the ad placement isn't there.
Those things are easily sorted. You know, we can sort out deduplication, we can sort out competitor clash. These are not difficult things to sort out. They're infuriating when you see them, absolutely. And me as a consumer, when I'm watching the ad breaks, I don't want to see the same thing over and over again at all. But that's easily sorted. So it makes me really quite cross when I hear people complaining about those things, because that is not a problem.
Yeah.
That's something that's easily sorted.
Fair enough. And Steph, Hayley, do you see that as, I mean, is that something that's high on the agenda for NBCU?
100%. I mean, I think with the pace at which media consumption habits are changing, the only way that everyone in this room, can actually keep up with the industry and stay ahead of the consumer is by building consumer trust. And that starts with building or giving them the best possible consumer experience. Now, we've all just been talking about it. Everyone in this room's had those frustrating moments when on different devices you've had blank screens, overlapping ads, you've had endless ad breaks with alternating volumes, and then repetitive creative, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a row, which is just it's not just annoying for us as a consumer, but it also undermines our marketers who are trying to engage us as consumers. Now, thankfully, to your point, there are solutions that can help with repetitive ads. You know, there's Ad ID, which attaches a unique identifier to your creative, and that's something that Peacock adopted and has become a requirement in advertising on the platform. But Peacock was built from the ground up with commercial innovation and user experience, first and foremost. I mean, we introduced the lowest ad load amongst our competitive set, less than 5 minutes per hour, and we've got the biggest ad innovation suite out of any other streamer out there. And it's all focused on, interactivity, making sure that you bring content to commerce, shoppable. We just announced a new ad format called the In-Scene ad at our 123 Developer Conference, which is your traditional product placement, but infused with the dynamic ad insertion of digital, which means that marketers can now actually place their product in any scene. But, going beyond just all of that good stuff, in order for you to create the best possible experience, you need to know who your consumer is. So who are they? What are they up to? How do they operate across platforms? What content and messaging has resonated with them and why? That's the signal that you need in order to create a more personalized experience, which not only benefits the consumer, but also allows marketers to have greater impact. And that's why we invest in so heavily in identity platform, NBC Unified, for that purpose.
May add to that point, know who your consumer is, know who your target audience is.
Yeah.
I feel that in the digital space, we're a little bit reverse engineering. We are putting a lot of, if I look at the buy side, we're putting a lot of knowledge and building knowledge on the execution, how to operate different platforms, how to, we're all great students of acronyms and stuff like that. But then if you go, in the line of these first principles, if you go from the consumer side and from the target audience side, you sometimes wonder when you see some of those briefs, right? So if I'm targeting dog owners 25 to 45 in Germany, and I'm trying to do a frequency of 1, and I do this and that filter and that stuff. How many dog owners in that age group are actually living in Germany? Do you know that? I mean, I wouldn't, but I would guess it's not that many, right? So the idea of that we also need to educate on the buy side about, which was, by the way, in linear, in the past, the starting point about how to translate your marketing objectives into your media plan and how that then is executed. But we start a little bit at the back where we say, okay, the execution needs to be, impeccable and needs to be super good, but we forget a little bit the front. Does it make sense? Is it worth it? Like, do I reach this target audience with this execution in an impactful way? And I feel that we as an industry pay a lot of attention to that last part, which is correct because it's very complicated and very technical, but we also need to shift a little bit the attention to the upper funnel of that planning.
I think one of the things that we were talking about beforehand, before we came on stage, and also it came up yesterday, is just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I really think it's important to sort of remember that, because there's so much measurement and optimization available. But I think we need to focus on the consumer. We need to focus on the experience, and maybe not like drill really far into these tiny audiences and not get the scale and frequency. I think it's really important that, just because we can doesn't mean we actually should do it.
It depends also on the advertiser, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a chocolate bar manufacturing company, what do you need? You need new buyers. Okay, it might be nice to target the heavy buyers on your chocolate bar, but you make the money with getting the reach. And that's also something where we have to acknowledge the fact, if you look at the linear signal in Europe, and that's also the difference between the US that sometimes gets forgotten here. If you look at the linear signal, you reach about 70% of all people in Europe in a day with linear.
But
So, all I'm saying is you need to choose your weapon based on what do you want to achieve and what is it that I actually want to, which consumer behavior do I want to change, and then execute, and not just execute because it's fancy or it's nice and it's digital and it's everything technical, but the other way around.
But you also get a lot of incrementality by bringing those worlds together. With linear and streaming. I mean, we only see about a 10% overlap between NBC Prime and Peacock. So it's while we fully encourage our partners to activate against both those ecosystems together, because you maximize reach.
But then you need the buy side also to think in that way, right?
Yeah,
to think audiovisual, to think about, okay, what are the marketing goals of my client here, and how do I translate them in the most impactful and efficient way to reach that goal? And I think that's sometimes we get a little bit lost in the technicalities of things.
So maybe we're talking, bring back some of the TV planning that we consider the medium for what it's good at, which is it's a mass medium, and even the CTV platforms, the ambition for all of them is to be mass as well, isn't it? So use it for what it's good at. And I think there's the promise of CTV is bringing the best of digital and the best of linear together, and then we've got this happy world. But there's a lot of issues, and you've brought up quite a lot of issues already, which are also opportunities, Steph. And but the reality is, I mean, we had this roundtable yesterday, and there are a lot of the reason that I think a lot of buyers are looking at the activation is because it is so complex. So can you speak to what sort of initiatives, what sort of things that you're doing to make it easier for modern medium buyers to transact? I mean, are there good things? Are there things that we could do better? I think that because it feels like we're at the start, not at the end of that journey. Maybe Daniel, that's a good one.
Sure. As I said, I think in Europe at the moment, we see many movements and thoughts about, okay, how can we make the trading of linear and non-linear more closer, comparable together? As I said, Atresmedia is going to launch in April, and is going to revolutionize the way they sell the linear inventory. Then I think for us, the HBB TV signal and the possibility of that combining the linear and the non-linear is a huge potential, because we see that you have those 70% reach, right, per day. And if you can infuse the digital capabilities of targeting, of exchanging spots, of all of that, and marry those two sides, that is in Europe definitely something that has huge potential. And with the next iterations of the HbbTV standard, spot replacements, all of that will be much more easy. And then you have the CTV category, which is, I think from a consumer perspective, very fragmented, right? I mean, as you said, nobody sits on that couch and says, oh, let's watch CTV, let's go through 100 apps or whatever, right? So we will see how that evolves. We believe that local content plays a huge role for us in terms of engaging with those local audiences in Europe. We have different countries, we have 500 million people, but we have different languages, different cultures, so that plays a big role. And for advertisers, what we're trying to do is we're bringing together 3 companies at the moment, a more digital tech-oriented company, RTL AdConnect as a sales house, and also print. We're trying to simplify the way into all of that, these possibilities, right, for advertisers to connect to consumers.
Excellent. From an ad tech point of view, do you see other ways that, I mean, obviously, ad tech's supposed to save everyone and save everyone loads of time, but it seems to be adding a huge amount of complexity. From your point of view, Steph, are there ways that ad tech can make it easier for modern buyers to basically transact easily, get to what they want, bypass all this complexity?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it is complicated at the moment, but I think my job is mainly focused around demystifying it and making it very easy and getting to that parity between linear and CTV and making sure that it's just the same. It's just buying, right? And I think, I know I'm like a broken record. I keep talking about yesterday, but it came up a lot yesterday that, you know, we can learn from the past, we can learn from mobile, we can learn from digital advertising, and try and get to that perfect scenario quicker. We've all made those mistakes. We all know what we're talking about. So I think we can look at the good stuff, take it with us, and try and get to that parity. And that's my main goal, is making this easy and finding parity.
Makes sense. And I think so obviously CTV, with all its complexity, you know, I think it must mean that, you know, your operational strategy and your relationship with the various platforms is of hyper importance. So do you, Hayley, from that point of view, how is it impacting everything that you do with your partners on a day-to-day level?
Well, partnership in advertising is one of the core assets as part of our wider corporate functions. It's on par with content and distribution, because in order for us to scale and grow, that's going to come through partnerships. I mean, we are partnered, we have an amazing relationship with all the different platforms. If you think about it as a business overall, I mean, Comcast acquired Sky in 2018, so we work hand in hand with Sky to unlock their full portfolio to the rest of the world, to marketers outside. RTL AdConnect and NBCUniversal, we've got a bilateral partnership which we formed last year. I mean, we one of the biggest content creators on YouTube. Ultimately, in order for us to significantly scale our business and increase our footprint around the globe, we know that we have to look beyond our own organization, and that's going to mean it's collaboration. It's working with other organizations to help us do that. So for us, you know, we're constantly looking for new partners to figure out how we could work together to drive incremental demand to each other. How can we work together to scale bigger, better, faster, you know, and give advertisers another way outside of the platforms. But that's going to mean that we're all going to have to come together in some way, shape, or form. So,
if I just may add to that, I think partnerships and you know, they serve also that purpose of simplifying it for the advertiser. Who's an advertiser here? Do we have advertisers here? Non-advertisers? Well, if there would be advertisers, right, I would have asked you what was the most frightening thing you saw today, because I think it was the slide from Thomas in the intro where he opened up another bucket in the Lumascape. All these logos need to be financed, and they need to be paid, and then they need to make money, and they need to make money of one ad dollar or ad euro. So whatever you can do to simplify that landscape, right, means less money for 100,000 in between and more money to reach your target audience and connect to them. And that's where I think partnerships come in place, and where these initiatives of simplification, the one platform, our initiatives, etc., come in place. Because at the end of the day, if you have to spend 60 cents to finance everything in the middle, then from an advertiser point of view, it's not fun, right?
Yeah. No. And do you think we're sort of missing a trick as the TV industry in that, obviously there seems to be some really good partnership going on between yourselves and NBCU with your various partners across the world, but you see a lot of friction in local markets, and I think TV has traditionally been one of the places you've seen there is a history of cooperation, there's a history of partnership, but cooperation. Do you think there's, outside of maybe what you're doing, but what you're seeing in, say, the US market outside of NBCU or the EMEA markets, do you think there could be more cooperation to sort of fight the oncoming digital giants?
Absolutely. I mean, I think firstly we all need to continue to lean into first-party data and the efficiencies it brings both buyers and sellers to better connect with consumers. But in order for us to scale first-party data, we need to, as an industry, adopt an industry-wide framework that enables interoperability. Because, so in other words, addressability at scale means collaboration at scale. We also need to continue working together, and we're doing this massively in the US, but this is obviously we have global ambitions, and I think this is for the whole ecosystem. We need to all continue to work together on measurement and how we can measure how people reflect, consume media today. And that's going to be a team effort. And then obviously we need more consistency and standardization. We're on the Free Will Council, and together with us, but we've also got the Peacock Council in the US, which is focused on ad innovation and building a better consumer experience and innovation. And I mean, we've been working with a number of different broadcasters on guiding them also to go from GRP to CPM, but also on how to create a better experience through ad formats and ad innovation. So I think there's a lot of work we can continuously do. But the one thing I want to add is that we are making so much progress. And as an industry, I think we need to start admiring that progress, because we do, sometimes you get stuck when you can't see the wood from the trees, but when you reflect and pull back, you go, wow, look how much we accomplished this year. So I think it's important to also focus on the good stuff that we do.
No, I think that's a fair point as well. We are actually making huge progress, but we do have the looming giants that are just trying to eat everybody's lunch there as well. So, I think we've just got to stay consistently on our toes there. From an ad tech point of view, do you think that there's a way that, say, companies such as yours or others can help, enable that collaboration between broadcasters?
I don't know if it's necessarily our job. I think we have to listen to the market, listen to what they're asking for, and make sure that our technology can provide those metrics that's being asked for. I don't think it's down to us to make sure that there's collaboration. But like we were saying, the TV industry has never really not collaborated. They're like the grandfathers of it. We've got Barb that's, rightly or wrongly, a universal metric. I don't think collaboration is necessarily a problem that the industry has. I think from my perspective as a technology, we just need to make sure that whatever you're asking for, we can provide you with that and those metrics. But also, don't get bogged down with it all. You can search for so many different metrics and measure a campaign in so many different ways. I think it's important that the brands, the agencies are asking the publishers for a specific thing. We optimize towards that, and the technology enables you to do that. I think otherwise you can end up having what you think is a successful campaign and everybody else doesn't for whatever reason. So I think that's where the collaboration comes in. Fair
enough. Right, look, we've burnt through the time here, so I've got one last question, and I'm going to preface it that not focusing on revenue or audiences, because those are things that are somewhat out of control. But what are the things that, so I'll start with you, Steph. So what would be the one thing that you'd like to see change in the next 12 months to enable this industry to grow outside of revenue and audience?
I think it's about leaning in. People are leaning in at the moment, absolutely, the broadcasters or the streaming technologies, but I think we're sort of at that tipping point, and the pressure has got to come from somewhere. That supply and demand or chicken and egg situation that we're in needs to change. And I think over the next 12 months, I want to see people leaning in more.
Fair enough. And Hayley?
I think everyone's just going to be, I'd like to see, people be more open to partnership and to figuring out, sometimes it's amazing how, you can now sit in front of what used to be your competitor, and now you can say, how can we work together? How can we make, and I think that's going to be the future, is more collaboration and partnership.
And final word, Daniel.
Yes, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say 3 things. So
Fine.
we want more strawberries, and we need more strawberries for sure. The second thing, as I said, is I think we need to also make sure that on the buy side, the knowledge about how do I get to the execution, what do I need to understand when reaching a target audience is important. And lastly, I would say I hope that lawmakers in Europe start to understand the scope of the business, because seeing it as there's linear TV, there's digital, there's this, this doesn't work anymore.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for joining. Round of applause.